Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we're going to be doing our weekly installment of the weekly meta breakdown. This particular video is for standard best of one. If you are new to the channel, to this content, what we do is each week we look at each format, best of one and best of three, so standard, historic, and explore. We don't really do alchemy because nobody really plays alchemy. And we look at the top performing decks for each week based on meta win share, just like win percentage and stuff like that. And the way we do this is by leveraging Untapped GG, what you see on the screen today. It is a companion tool that runs alongside your Arena client, tracks your win rates, loss rates, stuff like that, syncs your collections, tells you we can build. Free to get started. You can follow the link in my video description below to get that going if you want to track your games and get access to a lot of this helpful information. And then I also paste all these deck lists in an importable fashion into the video description, so you can just copy and paste those right into Arena if you'd like as well. So we are going to get started. Like I said, best of one standard. I'm going to try to get out the videos in the same frequency that I do this week, but we did have a pretty large storm here in Canada, and I lost power all of Saturday. So a little bit behind on content, just couldn't get anything going, but we seem to be up and running now, so we'll get these out as quick as possible. And we're going to start off. So this is May 16th to the 23rd. It is 270,000 games played of Magic for the week, Platinum to Mythic rank. And we're just going to jump into it. The top performing deck this week is Mono White Aggro. So this is a deck that's been largely unchanged for most of its duration. Pretty safe craft at this point. 68% win rate for this particular configuration. And really what we've seen with these decks is kind of fluctuation in terms of the 3-drop slot. And we've seen sometimes they've had Wandering Emperor, sometimes they've not. Elite Spellbinder looks to be out right now, and the current configuration is for Brutal Cathar, for Skyclave Apparition. So the back to the removal heavy version of the deck. There's less like Blood on the Snow style decks, more creature mirrors is what we'll see. Naya Ruins is very popular, Magecraft decks, Angels, stuff like that. So you do need some interaction at the 3-drop slot. Legion Angel package has become pretty stock in these lists in terms of the sideboard. And then you have like your Thalia for tax, Luminarch gets things big, the Hopeful Initiate growing package, Intrepid Adversary to lord up the team, and just kind of playing there. What we've seen more recently as well, we've seen Crawling Barons be played in some numbers of these decks, but they're actually playing Emeria's Call, so they're playing more for the late game, I would say, despite still finishing most games in under 5 minutes. But Mono White seems to be the top deck of the week and very, very close behind, and a deck that we just featured yesterday on the channel. So if you do want to see this deck in action, it is up on the YouTube. It's slightly different variation. They're just playing a one of Angelfire in here, which we weren't. This is a great inclusion in the deck as well. They're playing Sundown Pass. We were playing the Snarl version, but just really edge cases. And they're calling it Boros Burn. It's really a Boros Modify aggro style deck. Check out the video if you do. It was actually a really fun deck. I ran into it a lot in Mythic numbers. But basically what you're doing is you have a creature package of Hopeful Initiate, which gets larger. So you kind of have this modified sub-theme. Bloodthirsty Adversary is either a 2-mana haster or 5 mana or 8 mana, kind of flashback your burn spells. Your burn spells are Play of Fire and Roil Eruption. Brutal Cathar is some more removal, so you have 12 pieces of removal for like the creature mirrors. And oddly, you know, this card has seen like little to no play. Sunrise Cavalier, 3 mana, 3/3 haste, trample. Basically, whenever you switch day to night, you get to put a counter on it. So the evasion's a big thing in this deck. You see sometimes like Adeline can be 10 power, but it's getting chumped by wedding announcement tokens. This doesn't care. It just tramples over. I was really impressed with the deck. Then you got Thundering Raiju, just really taking advantage of all your creatures incidentally having counters, thanks to Luminarch or Kumano, or just naturally accruing counters themselves. The Raiju gets to do a bunch of incidental damage across the board. Some Sokenzans, Eiganjos, and then some Dens as your creature lands. Really was impressed with this deck. We went 4-2, but we got Magecraft just popped off, which Magecraft does sometimes. We ran into Is It Nothing But Burn spells, and we were basically attack off, and then they double invoked the Fiery Justice one, and it kind of bet us that way. But otherwise, we were 4-2 with the set. Orzhov Angels. So this is another deck that we've seen some variations of. This version here is looking to play a little bit larger, actually, which is interesting. So some interesting cards that we see in here. So it's kind of built around Giada, the Font of Hope, as well as Righteous Valkyrie. Righteous Valkyrie is like your Lord effect in the sense you get a bunch of life. Over 27 life, you get to buff up your squad. And then you got Giada, which also serves that. Its ramp, it allows each subsequent angel to come in as a larger version of itself based on the number of angels you have. I just found out this is like a $10 card in paper because of theme boosters, which is wild. You got your Overseers for card advantage, Furja's Retribution, Legion Angel package, some Liezas. Card that we've seen like next to no place, Sigardian Savior. Enters the battlefield. If you cast it, return up to 2 target creatures with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is an interesting inclusion because you really only have Giada, which you get a singular copy of, and then the Youthful Valkyries, but interesting to see this on the top end as well. Loving the Elspeth Resplendent. This card's awesome. We see Boon of Safety as a protection spell. This one's an interesting inclusion only because most of the removal is exile based in the format. And this deck's like super susceptible to Vanishing Verse, which the shield counter just really doesn't do much. Compare it to something like Tamiyo's Safekeeping or Snakeskin Veil that gives hexproof. It's a lot more useful in most cases. You have Haunting Voyage to bring back the whole squad as a kind of combo kill, and then some copies of Sanctuary Warden for some card advantage on the top end. So this one's an interesting build, kind of a big mid-range version of Angels as opposed to the more aggressively leaning versions that we see usually in like Explorer or Historic, like the Collected Company versions. First instance of Magecraft, and it seems like pretty much all these decks are, well, you're playing white, so throw in a Legion Angel package. This one's at 63% win rate. So the Magecraft package kind of got pumped because of Illuminator Virtuoso. We're seeing this as well in Explorer to some extent in various Boros kind of prowess Magecraft feather style decks, but Conniving getting larger. This version here I've run into both blue-white as well as green-white. Dragon's Guard Elite also gets bigger. The Leonin Light Scribe and Clever Luminancer both have Magecraft. You're also getting in these colors basically a critical mass of protection spells. You have 7 protection spells. Your lands also kind of just being counters. The Homestead Courage being 2 spells for 1 is really good. You can also discard it to the Luminator to get the Connive trigger and then flash it back. Crash Through providing trample, Wild Shape providing trample, also really key for this deck here. Interesting that they're on the Blizzard Brawl package with really 11 Snowlines. I don't know if I would play necessarily the Blizzard Brawl just because like you do kind of sully your mana base a bit, but interesting nonetheless. This has the Learn package from... Where are we learning? I don't see where we're learning. Okay, so that... Ignore the sideboard of these cards here. They probably at one point had a lesson board with the other Gird for Battle, but this one doesn't have it. Otherwise, like you also have Show of Confidence, which just stacks. The Vigilance is actually what bet me in most games, because you're usually trying to race this deck, and then they kind of get the Vigilance, so they get the big attack in, but also the blocker, which kind of hurts. We have Mono Green Stompy Stomps. And really what we're seeing the innovation this week with the deck is they're running Jewel Thief in the 3-drop slot. So we've seen Kazandu Mammoth typically be the secondary 3-mana spell if they do play one. Oftentimes it's just Old Growth Troll. But with Jewel Thief, the big thing that it does for the deck, Vigilance is really big into a Wandering Emperor format, being able to attack without worrying about being exiled. And the Trample is not something to ignore. It also helps you go from 3 mana to 5 mana, so you can effectively curve out into Invoke the Ancients, which is really nice. Otherwise, the 2-drop slot is usually where you see some fluctuation as well in the deck. Sculptor of Winter back in, playing a little bit larger version. No 1-drop Wolf in this deck, which is interesting. So really like your threats start coming down 2, 3, 4, 5. So slightly bigger than some of like the white-based aggro decks. This also plays really nice with like Rangers class, where you can put counters on it as well. Also, Jewel Thief into Chariot lets you copy even the treasure token if you want, just to ramp up. allows you to potentially flip the Uvenwall oddity earlier. So kind of cool innovation to see where mono green's going. We have Rakdos Sacrifice, Rakdos Anvil. Pretty stock, haven't seen much change. This is built around Onicult Anvil, sacrificing artifacts to kind of drain and gain. You're usually not going to win in one big attack, but like, I'll deal damage to you here, 2 damage here. Oh, you want to take a ping from my Ob Nixilis, discard. Ob Nixilis works really nice in this. Not necessarily like a quick ultimate, but again, just like incidental damage, incidental. You take 2 off Ob Nixilis, you take 1 off a Meat Hook trigger. You get blood tokens that can be fed to Anvil. A lot of card advantage in Synthesizer, Deadly Dispute. So a lot of kind of cool cards played into there. And then you have your Lolth as kind of your top end grind fest. Fable works really nice with Blood Tithe Harvester to potentially have a scalable removal spell every turn for 1 mana. And that is Anvil. We see Naya Ruins, which was top last week, kind of seeing a fall this week. And this version here looks to be one of the older versions. We've seen most of them go to Fable the Mirror Breaker in the 3-drop slot. This version here is still on Commune with Spirits, a Paladin class, Touch the Spirit Realm. I think largely the Fable version's probably better, just kind of reoccurring value. But really what you want to do is a conjuncture of Runeforge Champion and Jukai Naturalist, how the way the layering works in terms of the alternate casting costs makes that all your runes cost 0 mana. You then get to basically play them out, draw a bunch of cards, combine that with either Chapter 2 or Chapter 3 of Showdown of the Skalds or Generous Visitor, and you kind of pump up a very large team, attack in. If you're interested in kind of a deep dive, I did something last week where I spent like 15-20 minutes just going through all the kind of details, how to play the deck, kind of a really deep dive. I played a lot of this deck in Alchemy, which is largely the same as the standard version. Played it for an MIQ, for one of the qualifier for the Mythic Championships. I've played about 200-300 games with this deck probably by this point. So very well versed with it. If you do have questions and stuff like that, feel free to drop a link there. And then lastly, Esper Midrange. This is the deck, the most played deck from this weekend's Mythic Championship, Streets of New Capenna. Really just, this is good stuff. This is the money pile. 4 of Wandering Emperor, a bunch of Planeswalkers. Rafine just really helps kind of straighten out your draws, lets you play multiple legendaries to toss away. You got your Wedding Announcements, Kaido, bunch of removal spells, a cheeky Spell Pierce, Meat Hook. Just, if you like to value out your opponents, very good deck in that regard. And that's pretty much it. There was a couple like odd ones here and there. From standard wise, the decks I've played, like I said, we were out power, so I didn't play too much. Had a nice like run here. Overall, and this is what you can see with like deck tracking and stuff. I've been playing a lot of historic aggro, but we did well with both like a big white version, mono white, so kind of a mid-rangey, control-y, just like a chunkier version of mono white. Also did pretty well with the Boros aggro deck into high mythic. But you can see I've been playing a lot of explorer as well, but you can see what works well, what doesn't, and kind of from there. If you want to just like rank up quick, play historic mono red. I am like 76% this season. I have multiple 7-win events also with it. I have, I think lifetime I'm at like 67% win rate after like 300 games. I like mono red. It hits hard. So that's pretty much it for the week. You can see kind of playing around. Check out Untapped if you don't do it. Like, it's really helpful just to kind of keep track of things, win rates, stuff like that. And it's free to like have all this tracking and collection information, your wildcard counts, vault progress, collection tracking, all that's in there as well. In any case, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great one and stay safe out there.